One. You're live. Hello and welcome to PropTechBuzz, a business podcast on global PropTech, where we talk to founders and CEOs from all over the globe and learn from them how they build and manage successful PropTech companies. Before I introduce my guest today, there's a piece of good news. Our YouTube channel, which is fairly 5 months old, has crossed 1,300 subscribers. I know it's not a big number, but PropTech is a very niche topic, and still achieving 1,300 milestone is something that I would self congratulate myself. And the other piece of good news is we also introduced ourselves on Spotify if you prefer audio only. So please feel free to go to Spotify and look for PropTechBuzz. You can look for PropTechBuzz both on YouTube and on Spotify, and hit that subscribe and follow button. With that, let's welcome our esteemed guest today, Tanuj Shori is the CEO of SquareYards. If you have been in the PropTech space, I'm sure his name is not unfamiliar to you. SquareYard is India's largest full stack PropTech platform, which we are going to ask Tanuj, what does it mean? Because this space is so crowded as well. Everybody is claiming to be full stack, but Tanuj will do the honors for helping us understand what that stack means. But Tanuj had a phenomenal career here. He has scaled his company to big heights. SquareYards, it was a news reported 70% increase in revenue to 670 crores last fiscal year. Its revenue stood at 395 crores in 2021-22. I'm sure there are updated numbers from him. SquareYards helps transact 15,000 plus transactions worth 3 billion plus US dollars every year with profitable economics. It is also one of the few Indian startups to have transitioned successfully to global landscape, with more than quarter of revenues coming from global markets such as Middle East, Australia, and Canada. And you must note that primarily PropTech is a very local play. It's not like a typical SaaS product where you can launch all over the world. So this also gives him a lot of credit that in spite of being a local play, he has been able to globalize this across different continents. And there is also, I have some questions on data analytics, because with the help of data analytics and VR tools, SquareYards is trying to disrupt the traditional ecosystem of marketplaces with a bet on building the first MLS in India. I've had this topic of MLS, on why MLS is only a phenomenon of the US and not in the rest of the world. So that will be a good topic to also ask him. And at the same time, he has some adjacent B2C platforms like Azuro Interior Company and Square Capital, and is scaling up to become category leaders by themselves. So we are going to ask some questions there as well. So I'm all pepped to have a very delightful conversation with Tanuj. Tanuj, welcome to PropTechBuzz. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks a lot, Ravi, for having me here. Congrats on the YouTube subscribers, what you were speaking earlier. But most of all, thanks. Delighted to be here.
Same here, as excited as ever. I was looking forward to this conversation since long. Thank you for promptly agreeing to be on my guest. I'm sure you're a busy man with such a big business that you're handling. So let's cut to the chase, right? SquareYards, we all know. However, we would not know what it is today, because I'm sure it has had an evolution in the last several years. What is SquareYards?
Right. So Ravi, and like you briefly mentioned in the introduction, full stack play, and we very strongly bold this particular positioning for ourselves. So obviously the journey has evolved over the years, but what we always wanted to create, we have been able in some capacity, but there is still a long way to go, is creating a platform which works with the consumer in end-to-end consumer home buying journey. So starting from the search and discovery, to the house transactions, to the mortgage when a consumer needs a mortgage, to when the consumer wants a home renovation done, getting that house managed, property managed, various B2C layers, effectively the journeys which the consumer go through. Not the least, helped in the background by various B2B platforms wherein we work closely with the developers, banks, various other stakeholders on the B2B ecosystem. The idea is in this entire journey, and which is a very complicated journey in itself, in a lot of other experiences, the entire trust gets broken of a consumer, and how do we solve for that? How do we solve for that seamlessly under the one roof? That's effectively what we have tried to create.
Got it. So there are other players also in the same space. Okay, are you in direct competition to other property portals like Magic Breaks, 99 Acres, Common Floor? Could you help us understand how maybe you are different, or are you just the same but a bigger market share or something of that sort?
Right. We are competing with them, but in silos. Like I mentioned earlier, in the entire consumer journey, the search and discovery effectively is the first step where discovery of the information. That's effectively where property portals play. Whether it is Magic Breaks, 99 Acres, Housing in India, whether it is Property Guru in Singapore, um, Zillow in US, REA in Australia, but they only play that part of the journey. So once that discovery journey is over, the consumer experience gets disintermediated to various other platforms who are working in tandem with these search and discovery platforms. What we believed very early on is search and discovery is barely 5% of the value chain of the
Hmm.
consumer experience.
Right.
And to be able to build up a substantial, long scale intermediary ecosystem, you need to be able to do much more than that.
Got it. So what is, so if search and discovery is only five? Did you say 5%?
5%, less than 5% rather.
So where is the majority value coming from in
The
the
majority of the value gets created in multiple ecosystems around the transaction. How the consumer buys, sells, rents the houses, how the mortgage works around the housing ecosystem, um, before the consumer moves into the house, how does the home renovation comes into the play. So all these sub buckets of the journey effectively make for more than 90% of the value.
Okay, could you dumb down on how transaction, because transaction is always an offline play, isn't it? So how do you capture transactions with the help of
I,
your
I,
platform?
I believe the industry for very, very long has been constrained and burdened by digital, offline, hybrid. The words which in isolation probably don't mean much. The fact of the matter is what the search and discovery is doing. Search and discovery effectively giving a consumer some sort of information to be able to transact better. The goal is to transact. The goal is not to discover the property. Discover is a subset towards that information. And just a small example, but so we believe the value chain is a hybrid value chain where part of the value chains are digital, where data plays a critical role, information symmetry plays a critical role, discovery plays a critical role. But because it's a heterogeneous asset class, unlike most of the other asset classes which are homogeneous, what I mean by when I say homogeneous, heterogeneous, um, let's take an example of auto. It is one of the very high value asset classes which hasn't moved fully digital. But if you want to buy an Audi A3, it will be the same Audi wherever you buy from. But every house is different, every view is different, every floor is different. So that's why, because it being a heterogeneous asset class, it being a very, very expensive asset class, it's more than 50% of the wallet of any average consumer. There is an offline component. There is a component where a consumer would want to see the site. There is a component where consumer would want to check the veracity of the surroundings, the access, and everything. Although a lot of that is also getting digitized as we speak, but we believe for a long period of time it will remain a hybrid class where you will have to solve for both to be able to be an effective player. And not just in India, effectively everyone globally wants to move to transactions, wants to move to build a hybrid marketplace. Zillow and REA are very good examples in US and Australia. Let's take an example of Zillow. Zillow is probably $2.5-3 billion revenue, gold standard in property marketplaces globally. It is less than 2% of the overall intermediary revenue pie in US. And that's effectively Zillow realizes, and Zillow wants to go after that, and Zillow has been trying to go after that over the
Hmm.
last couple of years. So we believe search and discovery platforms are not search and discovery platforms solo. The search and discovery platforms by choice. They would want to be full stack transactional platforms. It's a difficult journey to build a full stack transaction platform.
Got it. So how does so what does that hybrid mode look like in terms of experience? Like somebody comes to Square Yards, okay, searches and discovers and gets a match, and
Exactly.
then does he go offline with you, or how does it work out?
Offline either with us or our affiliate partners. So depending on the which asset class, which segment, which city are we talking about, but the
Mhm.
experience remains in-house either ways. The like let's say you are a potential consumer and you wanted to buy something, you liked a listing, your experience would not get disintermediated by your lead going to some independent offline broker. Uh,
Hmm.
so that experience would remain in-house. The consumer would still be talking to the brand called SquareYards.
Mhm.
Once this house transaction is concluded, the experience continues to remain in-house rather than a third-party financial lender getting involved. 100% subsidiary of SquareYards, which is Urban Money, gets involved and manages the entire consumer lending on that particular asset, so on and so forth.
So what about the real estate agents? Are they also under your umbrella? Like, do they have the carry the stamp of Square Yards?
So for all the new homes, we carry in-house agents,
Mhm.
which are employed by us, which work for Square Yards and which will be dealing with the clients. New homes is the largest segment in India we are trying to solve for. That's 70% of the overall asset. Like any other emerging market, any emerging market is predominantly a new home segment. For the secondary market, and which is where the MLS would also come in our chat later on.
Just a second. Could you elaborate what does the emerging market with new homes mean?
uh, any emerging market, any emerging economy, whether it's India, whether it is Bangladesh, whether it is any other Asian economy, eventually in future African economies, you will realize that 70-80% of the asset transactions in housing industry are new homes.
I see. Vis-a-vis something like Germany, which is not emerging, which is still a stale market, which is a resale is more is how.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that predominantly is led by a very important word called urbanization.
Hmm.
As urbanization goes up in any country, in any city,
Correct.
new homes effectively eventually slowly moves towards graduate towards the resale. So
Hmm.
for example, China till about 20 years back, urbanization was 35%. 70% of the transactions were new homes.
Right.
Fast forward to today, urbanization is 60%. 30 to 30, 40% of the transactions are new homes. In
So
most of
yeah, complete your thought. Most
in,
of
in most of the developed economies, Europe, for example, Singapore, 90% transactions are resale.
got it.
Maybe 10% are new homes because these are effectively highly urbanized, highly developed economies.
Got it. So, what is the change in businesses or business model? What is the change in dynamics for transacting in new homes versus resale?
Very critical. Resale is a very hyper local market where discovery is very, very critical because you're talking about hyper local supply, hyper local potential demand, particular micro market within a particular micro market, a particular locality, a particular apartment. Consumer would be looking for those, and consumer needs to have access to every potential supply in that catchment area. And
But
that is why
why
that
why why, why should be not hyper local also? I'm asking some very dumb questions. Okay, so you are
uh,
the veteran. You are the veteran here. Why should it not be hyper local for new
But
apartments?
in new homes are typically large projects launched by developers. They are fairly more democratic in terms of the information discovery,
Mm.
accessibility. A new home consumer may not be buying a particular asset for the end use in the next couple of months, so the
Mm.
location is a bit more variable,
Got it.
so on and so forth. So where the business models differ is you can't build a very deep penetrative secondary market play without have access to hyper local supply and hyper local demand. However you build it, the models could be different across the world.
Right.
New homes though can be built as a centralized distribution model.
Mm. Got it. You can have a sales force, okay, that is just working on focused on selling the entire building and stuff like that, right? Okay. This is a scattered portfolio which you do not have. You cannot have the same focus as a new build. Got it. Excellent. So transactions would be, so when you said search and discovery is 5%, transactions is the rest.
Is the rest for us. Now, again, coming back to how does it work for someone like us? New homes will be all predominantly in-house. Our agents on the ground, working with the consumers, working with the principals, effectively the asset providers. In
Mhm.
secondary market, what we realized that because it is hyper local and we cannot effectively control the entire supply in a very fragmented market, so we needed um, to partner with the secondary market agents. So herein, that is where the search and discovery piece steps in. That is where our affiliation with all the independent agents steps in. We provide them with a tech platform. We provide them with a marketplace. We don't monetize. We don't partially monetize the transaction revenue which they make, but we do work with them very, very closely on the ancillary services. For example, two-thirds of our mortgage business comes from the real estate agents in the secondary market who have transacted using our platform for the search and discovery.
Hmm. So when you say mortgage business, so mortgage is from the bank, right? So what does that business mean? So do you make commissions out of it, or how does it work out?
Exactly. Very similar to real estate. We would make intermediary income out of it. As we speak, we are the largest digital platform in India for the mortgages. We move close to 250 to 300 million dollars a month in terms of mortgages, and part of that is captive, basically the transactions which happened on the SquareYards platform in
Hmm.
the new homes. Part of that is secondary, wherein we work with the secondary agents for the secondary transactions which happen with the help of platform. Part of that is outside the both, where the consumer may not have come to SquareYards at all,
Hmm.
has not done the transaction with the help of either SquareYards or our affiliated agents. They may have directly come to Urban Money to facilitate their mortgage needs.
Hmm. So usually, what's the business like, a standard business for mortgage? So what is the commission rates? How do they vary across the market?
Depending on the country, depending on the economy, every country is different. The US would be probably zero point 0.3 to 0.5%.
Okay,
An emerging economy would be closer to, again, depending on what part of the value chain you are fulfilling. Are you just generating a lead for the bank, or are you fulfilling the entire value chain for a consumer?
got it.
But but the beauty in this business, again, in very similar to new homes, is the consumer doesn't need to pay for it. For the
Hmm.
consumer, the service charges are free. They don't bear the cost of acquisition or the transaction cost. The lender, in case of the mortgages, the real estate developer, in case of the real estate, pay for the intermediary income.
Got it. Got it. So there is transactions, mortgages, and then the rest of the value chain is home furnishing
Home
and
furnishing.
rentals and property management, right? So this completes the stack. So
Exactly. So home
so
renovation is effectively when the consumer is about to move into the house. The consumer would want to get the home renovation done. Again, like the other two value chains, it continues to be a very, very fragmented value chain. A lot of small providers, unorganized providers providing the home renovation services. We saw value there. We realized that since we already have the trust of the consumer, we are already participating with the consumer in the transaction process so far. So why if we were to build design capabilities in house and try and organize that market. We launched this couple of years back, less than a couple of years back. It has scaled very, very nicely. To our overall revenue pie, it is almost 10% of the revenue, the home renovation space.
wow.
uh, and last but not the least is property management. It is very different from facility management.
Hmm.
The idea here is specifically targeted at the landlords who want a convenience of managing their assets, their
Hmm.
tenants, without getting significantly involved. So it's a pure end-to-end digital platform where we take care of asset acquisition or tenant acquisition, we take care of tenant management, we take care of anything and everything which goes wrong in the house. It's a cost plus model, and the monetization is a percentage of the monthly rental which a landlord pays.
Got it. And property management, what has been the reception and awareness of Indian market? Because property management as a concept is a very US centric concept. Okay, people
Yeah.
still do not are very are not receptive to the idea to give monthly commissions to a property manager. They think that what's
It,
the is it changing?
it
Is it changing?
it's been difficult, but yes, being receptive. So just to give you certain numbers, it's been 2 years for us. We launched property management. We today run almost 1,600 houses, almost $350 million under management. Uh, if it was US or UK, with the intensity with which we are operating, we would have been closer to 10,000 homes. So the reason we are less than 2,000 homes still is because, again, the acceptability of the model is in the very, very nascent stages in India.
Right. Got it. So there are, I have spoken to some property management companies on my podcast from India as well. Do you have an advantage over point solution providers than somebody who's providing full stack? Is that something
Uh,
that you have the advantage or no?
Again, the same advantage which we have in every other category we operate in. Um, Consumer trusts us.
Hmm.
Consumer has been working with us
Okay.
on other piece of the assets classes.
Got it. There is
So
another model wherein I've seen that while a builder is handing over the property, they already tie up with the property management provider as
right.
part of services. Is this also very common?
That's not very common in India. That's what we are trying to bring in
Uh-huh.
India effectively. So
Got it. Because I saw some websites, they listed builders. I did not understand why is a property manager listing out builders. So this is the builders are actually having a tie-ups with them. So as an additional services for them.
so just to highlight how underserved or in a very nascent stage the market is, we with 1,600 houses are the largest property managers in India.
Is it
Yep.
1600 is fairly small number, no?
It's a very, very small number. That's what I'm saying.
And you're saying you're still the largest.
Yep.
Hi Tanuj, I'm back.
No worries.
Yeah. So nothing. So there was a pressure cooker blasted. So
Oh, shit. I hope all of you.
no, just the kitchen is messy. That's it. So let's continue where we left. Okay, cool. Could you help me where
No,
we
I would
were?
say that's the state of the market, how fragmented the market is, and how in the nascent stages of the market is.
Got
In 10 years, I am sure it will be a huge industry, very similar to what we see in developed economies. But yeah, it will take some time for Indian consumer to accept property management as a service.
Got it. Excellent. By the way, so when you are offering this full stack services, and you said that most of the other players are only are operating in search and discovery. Why is it so? Because I'm sure they are also not newbies in the market, right? So is this something that you have a secret sauce that you have cracked that others cannot?
Uh,
Or is there a challenge there that?
it is not easy to build a full stack. Let me be very candid. And trying to be humble about it, it's very, very difficult. We believe one of the most difficult models to build across asset classes globally is to build a full stack home consumer journey platform. The reason why I say that it is one of the most difficult is very few players globally have been able to do that. You can actually count on your fingers, less than 10. And pretty much everyone wants to do that.
Hmm.
So every single search and discovery play wants to become a full stack. They have tried becoming a full stack. They have invested significant amount of capital in trying to becoming a full stack. They have not been able to become a full stack. The challenge is it is very different. Effectively, you're running 5 organizations together. You're trying to build 5. You're trying to solve for 5 categories at same point in time. So invariably, unless and in all these categories, these are very fragmented categories. Every category has a localized category player, which is very, very strong. So for you be able to be effective, you de facto need to become a market leader in all these categories. So we are saying you need to build 5 organizations in very, very fragmented markets, and you need to become category leaders in all these categories at the same point in time parallelly and tie them together.
Because you're competing with a local player who might have much more experience and has stronghold locally, and competing with them becomes a challenge. So what worked in your favor? So it was hard. So you do not want to reveal your secret sauce, but still, what went in your favor? What are the things that you did well where you are able to crack it gradually?
So, it's been hard, definitely very, very hard. It continues to be hard. Even though we are the market leaders, yet I don't think we have still solved for it yet. Our market share in all these categories is probably 1 to 2%. Even though we are the market leaders, 1 to 2% doesn't give us any room for comfort. We should be double-digit market share. So there's still a long, long way to go. That's a caveat. What worked? A, right place at the right time. B, perseverance. We realized very, very early where we wanted to be. I think most of the global players have started talking about full stack in the last 3 years.
Mm.
We were talking about a full stack ecosystem in 2015. when no one wanted to become a full stack at that point in time. And C, very strong founding and management team. So we believe that has been one of the modes we bring to the table. There are 20 co-founders now. There's been a very stable team. No people have been with us for more than 7 years on an average. All of these people, they are experts in building these various category leadership businesses. The mandate to each one of them is the focus for individually themselves is to build a category leading business. And all of us need to come together end of the day to ensure that all threads are tied up to each other. But this management team has been one of our biggest exponential relative success stories over any other player in the market.
Got it. So could you run us through your evolution? For how long has SquareYards been in the industry now?
8.5 years now, Ravi. And again, we did not become full stack overnight.
Exactly. So what was the evolution?
So we started doing transactions first. We realized that that's effectively a core of the entire consumer experience. As long as A, experience, and B, revenue monetization. So as long as we can control that, we can handle that, we should be able to build vertical integration around it. Exactly how it played out. So real estate came first. We became market leaders in real estate. We tied that to the mortgages. Urban money came second. We became category leader in mortgages. Then we started expanding into search and discovery play. We realized that to sort for search and discovery, we need to solve for the supply. Demand will follow the supply, and we went around solving for the supply in a very unique format. In couple of years, in 2.5 years, we went from zero to the largest supply in the market in India. Even though in traffic we still not the largest in India. 99 My Magic Breaks, Housing, all three of them have higher traffic than our platform. They are roughly around 13 to 14 million visitors a month, but we have gone from zero to almost 8.5 million visitors a month, and in less than 2 years.
So is this because I was also talking to a VP from Property Guru in Singapore,
Right.
and they were saying that it's primarily the winner takes all market, especially on property portals, right? So that means for any new entrant, it's a Herculean task to survive. Okay, I mean UK, Purple Bricks, how hard it was, even they went out bust. So is it true that only a couple of them or a few in a big market like India? I mean, you're not only in India today, but still, how does one cope with competition? Is it only for a few?
I think that judgment is clouded by being in the developed economy. It's true for a developed economy. That's how it's played out. You have REA in Australia, you have Rightmove in UK, Property Guru in Singapore, Zillow in US. When it comes to emerging markets, there is barely any emerging market you will see a winner takes it all. It's a very highly competitive. Like for example, India, the 5 large platforms all have traffic anywhere between 10 to 15 million each. No clear winner. On ground positionings are changing every 6 months. Market shares are changing every 6 months. A very good example is a player like us coming from behind, from zero 2.5 years back, and grabbing almost 10 million visitors a month in 2.5 years. Because the industry is so underserved, the industry still hasn't reached the full potential. Eventually, we believe when we move to 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line, India would also have probably one or two very large players, and there would be a lot of consolidation during that journey. Hopefully, we'll be one of those two when the dice stops rolling in a couple of decades. But to answer your question, there would be to put it the rightly, oligopoly in an emerging market rather than a monopoly in an emerging market for a time to come.
Oligopoly would be a few major players.
4 to 5
right? Okay.
players.
Got it. So my question was, how did you scale so fast? Like what does it take for a new entrant to come into the market and get traffic?
So we came up with a fairly unique strategy, and our hypothesis luckily was proven right. What we realized that since the monetization play in the search and discovery is very very small, in any case the monetization is a fraction of the overall revenue pie, and we wanted to crack the supply. We made our platform a free listing platform, and that is where that opportunity to wanting to create an MLS comes in. What
Mm,
we India has close to 500,000 agents,
mm,
and even the largest platforms in India, the paying agents are not more than 25,000. So what we realized that 70% of the supply in India is not getting digitized. Still, uh, a large chunk of agents do not come and list on any of the platform because they do not want to pay for the marketing dollars. And
mm.
that's what we wanted to crack. We wanted to homogenize, we wanted to democratize listings and supply. Fortunately, that hypothesis played out for us in the last couple of years.
Okay. But okay, but you already had revenue drivers from your other
Exactly.
pipelines.
We
Okay.
still don't make revenue from search and discovery platform.
I see. So that was the reason for you to succeed and grow. Okay, got it. Let's come to the MLS part. Okay. So I have asked this question to another guest from the US on exactly this, but I think it's a good opportunity for us. So why no other country have a network of agents with an MLS where it is self-help ecosystem, right? People helping each other with this network.
I
And
think
what's your vision of building such a MLS in India?
I think what does MLS mean? Let's break it down. Um, it means democratizing supply effectively. Yeah.
Right.
Everything else is a subset to that. It means that every single supply in the market is visible, available to every single counterparty in the ecosystem.
Right.
uh, which is not a great business for a lot of market participants.
Mm.
Uh, and that is why the resistance to create MLS in various shapes, size, and forms have been. Um, we believe that is the way. We believe the world will go down that path, not just in emerging markets, in developed economies, eventually over a period of time.
Mm.
The premium of having access to a particular supply should go out.
Mm.
Supply has to be democratized, supply has to be digitized, and as and when the value chain goes more and more digital, and then when you get more and more products around the value chain, the information flow, the data analytics flow all coming in put together would ensure we go down in that direction. And when I say what we are trying to create in India is effectively a very similar, like in an ideal world, what we should do over a period of time is all these 500,000 agents in India should be able to list for free on SquareYards.com with every single listing available to every single counterparty.
Okay. So if the power goes away from your own network of your list, so there is the resistance, right? So what is the incentive for them to become a part of a democratic platform of an
No,
MLS?
so effectively, where then Canada is a good example. Canada is an MLS where every listing is available to everyone. The power of the intermediary lies in the power of consumer. Effectively, whoever owns a consumer owns the revenue pie in that transaction, and that needs to happen effectively. Whoever gives the better consumer experience, whoever has better traction amongst the consumer, whoever has the ability to provide more value added services to the consumer wins the game.
Got it. I get that. So you see that eventually this is the future. Without you exerting influence to build an MLS, naturally this will evolve into building
And
something.
in any industry, eventually in the long run, the consumer wins.
Hmm.
Whatever is good for the consumer eventually wins, and MLS is the best thing for the consumer.
Got it. Excellent. So my next question is, so could you help us? So there are three different businesses you said, right? So there is Azuro, Interior Company, and Square Capital. What are these B2C platforms?
Square Capital is Urban Money. Urban Money is a mortgage platform.
Got it.
Interior Company is home renovations, which we spoke
Got
about.
it.
Azuro is a property management business.
And they are set to become big category leaders by themselves. Is that how it is?
Urban Money is already the category leader.
Is it okay?
Is the largest in the country. Home renovations, Interior Company is the third largest player in the country, not the largest. And property management, I hate to say that we are largest with that volume, but we are.
Azuro, you mean Azuro?
Azure.
Okay. So you say urban money, right? So when you say the largest, that means you have the largest network of banks and you are giving them the biggest amount of leads. Is that how it is to call it?
Largest volume. So, like I told you before, we are moving almost $300 million per month through that platform, which is the largest digital platform in India.
To become a largest mortgage player, you need to have the largest asset or a volume of properties in your portfolio. Is that how it
Not,
is?
not necessarily. What we are saying is we work with pretty much every large lender. The credit is written by the lender,
Right.
but the volume of the business, the volume of the files, the volume of the mortgage is moving through the platform.
I
Yes, sir.
see. Got it. And there are who would be the second big player?
So there is part of the listed vehicle. There is a company called Paisa Bazaar.
Pesa
Um,
Bazaar. I see.
they are the second largest digital platform.
Nice. Pesa Bazaar has been for some time, no, in the industry.
Yeah.
You came later and then you grabbed the.
Right.
So okay, let's you talked about your management strength. You talked about your perseverance and stuff like that. But give us some more secrets about your leadership style, leadership skills. What do you think are your own as a leader? What do you think are your personal strengths that you think has contributed to the success of Square Yards already?
Tough question.
I
My
mean,
colleague.
you can be humble and say it's the team, but I'm sure you have built the team, and I mean, this is phenomenal because some of the examples that you gave, you have built from scratch, and suddenly you became a monopoly. What does it take? I mean,
But
if you
genuinely, Ravi, it is a team. I would love to take credit, but
can.
I should not, and I cannot take the credit. It's been, imagine, like you speak to so many founders, you speak to so many companies. Imagine 10 of your brilliant founders coming together, trying to build together. And
Mm,
that's when the magic is created. Yes, my job has been conflict management. My job has been to ensure that we all remain motivated, we all believe in the longer, in the larger picture, in a blue sky scenario. Can we create $100 billion organization? Continuing to believe that, continuing to ensure that everyone around me believe that. But the real execution on the ground, the real market share grab on the ground, traction on the ground is effectively built by these people. And yeah, yes, we run a very, very strong people emphatic culture where these all act as mini CBOs, CEOs. They are CBOs building their own empires. But eventually, end of the day, execution wins. Idea. I have always said that ideas are overrated.
mm.
Execution wins.
Good. But still, if I would ask your management team, your leadership team, if they have to pick a few strengths of yours, what do you think they would say about your leadership?
uh,
Is it ambition or is it
vision definitely.
vision? Okay.
Ability to drill down every single day that why are we doing what we are doing,
Mm,
and why what we are trying to build, it'll take decade or couple of decades. It's not going to be done in the next 2 years. So trying to ensure that everyone is gets married to the long term vision. um, People management to an extent, ability to carry everyone along.
right.
There are larger than life personalities. Obviously, when people are building businesses, how do
Mm,
we ensure that they go home happy and they are able to getting the best out of them, ensuring that they are delivering to the best of their capabilities.
got it. What would be Square Yards next couple of years looking like? Like what's the vision like?
Very
What's the
exciting. So in fact, last couple of years have been very exciting as well. So our growth has become faster, leaner, easier. We have almost tripled in the last 2 years.
mm,
Hopefully, we will repeat that in the next 2 years. Um, there's a long, long way to go. So we believe we have already present in the segments we wanted to be in
mm,
terms of the value chain. The story for us over the next couple of years is doing more of the same.
mm.
How do we get to 10% market share from 1% market share?
Nice.
How do we execute better? How do we scale better? So,
And you are self-sustainable, or your growth story needs more capital infusion into your business, or how does it work?
we so last quarter was the first profitable quarter in our history.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
this financial year should be profitable in itself. So we believe we are getting to the self-sustainability range.
Without needing to put in more
We
capital.
might still raise capital for strategic purposes, growth initiatives, but where
Got
we are, what we are executing, the growth rates we are executing, we should be good.
And are you the only player in the market today which is profitable? Is that fair to say, or?
I believe so, yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Where do you see that the trends? That is my last question here. Where do you see the trends in this space? I mean, you can talk about globally because you're a global player today. Where do you see the trends here?
Uh, Very unique. For the longest period of time, global real estate markets were very hot. PropTech was a buzzword. Not in India. India was going through the toughest, longest bear cycle in its history. Ironically, both turned around in the last couple of years. So global real estate is not the great place to be in right now.
Hmm,
With most of the economies, most of the asset classes, and most of the developed economies struggling, both volumes have been crashing. The prices have been coming down. There have been news of developers under a lot of stress, banks under a lot of stress. Conversely, in India, last couple of years have been one of the best times to be in over the last decade. So we believe India is getting on the edge of a very, very long-term bull cycle.
hmm.
Its starting days, we will probably see a very, very strong decade for Indian real estate, and which will be exciting for every participant, every stakeholder who is participating in India.
Got it. A decade and more, maybe, right? Because as you said, emerging markets. I mean,
Much more.
housing
Yeah, yeah. You're
housing
talking about
companies.
urbanization rates of only 33-34% in India. And India will go to 50-60% urbanization.
Got it.
And this is my favorite part of the dialogue speech, which means almost 400 million people moving to cities. Even if you assume a family of four, we are talking about 100 million houses which need to be built over the next 20 years.
Got it.
Uh, India barely builds 1 million today a year.
But I also know that there is still a lot of new houses that are not yet handed over. They are still unoccupied.
There is
Is there
always
lag?
No, no, there is always an execution capability issue. Yes, easier to say that India needs to build 100 million homes, but India needs to have the necessary infrastructure to build those 100 million homes.
Got it.
But we are talking purely from a potential demand perspective. Is there a demand? Will there be a demand for 100
Got
million
it.
homes?
Got it. You were also in news for fractional ownership, right? Because I think a few months ago, could you shed some light on that aspect?
So obviously, lot is changing in that landscape. There have been a couple of regulations over the last week
Yeah.
in terms of how fraction assets needs to be structured and sold. We just launched fraction a quarter back. We just distributed one asset. So what we are doing on ground is we are remodulating based on where the compliances are, where the regulations are. We believe we will this news, this regulations coming in. Are effective could not come have a better time for a player like us. What it means is larger players with larger balance sheet and ability to distribute would have a significant advantage of over any digital traction platform which were being launched over the last couple of years.
So where in the value chain are you offering fractional ownership?
It will be part of the commercial real estate structuring. It was very new. It's not even 1% of our business.
Okay, so we did not talk about the commercial real estate today, but you have a portfolio of commercial as well. Okay,
We don't. Fraction was the only way we were targeting that.
got it. Excellent. Well, this brings us to the end of a very, very delightful conversation with Tanuj. Tanuj, thank you for sharing with us the wealth of knowledge that you have, and very, very extraordinary story. You gave me lots of examples, which is very inspiring. Where you were a late mover, and still you climbed onto the top, becoming a market leader in many of these segments that you mentioned. Very inspiring. Thank you so much for your time, Tanuj.
Thank you, Ravi.
See you around, Tanuj. Bye bye.